All right, so get ready, because today we're diving into a story.
Oh, yeah.
This is a good one.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unless you see the evidence.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist.
It's a good one.
$18.7 million worth of maple syrup.
Liquid gold, baby.
Gone.
Yeah.
Poof. Vanished.
That's a lot of pancakes.
We've got news articles.
It is.
We've got court documents
Yeah.
about this whole investigation.
Yeah.
So think of us
You got it.
as your detective partners as we untangle this very sticky situation.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so what's really wild is this whole thing starts with a routine inventory check back in July of 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Picture this, right? You got this inspector at a massive warehouse
Yeah.
climbing on top of these barrels like he's done 1,000 times before.
Uh-huh.
And he's expecting them to be full, right?
Yeah.
Full of that heavy maple syrup.
Oh, yeah.
But suddenly he almost falls right through
Oh, no.
because the barrel is empty.
Whoa. What? Yeah, that was the moment that everything changed and this wild story began to unfold.
Oh, man. So we've got a crime scene,
Yep.
missing syrup,
Yeah.
and a lot of questions.
A lot of questions.
But to understand how something like this could even happen,
Yeah.
we've got to back up a bit.
Yeah.
What exactly were they stealing from?
So they were stealing from the Strategic Reserve,
Sure.
held by the Quebec maple syrup producers,
Oh.
the PPAQ,
The PPQ?
and they control almost all maple syrup production in Quebec.
Wow.
This reserve
Okay.
is meant to stabilize prices, make sure there's a steady supply. Think of it kind of like protecting the market from the ups and downs of maple syrup production.
So like a safety net.
Yeah, exactly, like a
Yeah.
safety net. Maple syrup production, is
Yeah.
very dependent on the weather, and the reserve helps smooth things out for
Oh.
the producers and the consumers. And the PPAQ, they've been around a long time.
Yeah.
They've become, they're pretty powerful. They control things like production quotas and pricing.
But that level of control, I
Yeah.
mean, that hasn't come without criticism, has it?
Right. No, not at all.
Yeah.
There have been arguments that the PPAQ's tight grip
Yeah.
actually creates kinda the perfect environment for a black market to thrive.
Oh,
When something's in high demand, but tightly controlled,
Right.
some people who can't access it through,
Yeah.
the legal means might be tempted to
Find other ways.
find other ways. Exactly.
So there's wasn't just some random act of,
Oh.
thievery. It was tied to
Huh.
all the complexity of the maple syrup market itself.
Exactly. And it seems like history was repeating itself.
Oh.
Because back in 2006,
Yeah.
there was already a smaller theft
Mm.
of around $1 million worth of syrup.
You'd think that'd be a wake-up call.
Right. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah. So how'd they pull this off? How do you steal millions of dollars worth of maple syrup?
Well, first, you find yourself a warehouse with surprisingly lax security.
Okay.
The PPAQ was renting this warehouse in St. Louis de Blandford to store all their surplus.
Okay.
Turns out, security, not really a top priority. No cameras,
Oh, right.
no alarm systems.
Really?
Just rows and rows of these unmarked barrels
Okay.
filled with liquid gold.
So opportunity was knocking.
Big time.
Tell me they didn't just walk out of there with barrels under their arms.
It was a little more complex than that.
Okay.
The thieves actually siphoned syrup out of the barrels
Wow.
over a period of months and
Oh.
replaced it with water
Oh, my God.
to avoid detection.
Could you imagine watering down the maple syrup reserve?
That's bold.
That is so bold. But it
Oh.
sounds like they got bolder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As they got more confident, they just stopped messing around with the water and
Yeah.
they just started stealing entire barrels. Yeah, they had trucks coming and going.
Oh, my God.
Transporting the stolen syrup to be blended with legitimate syrup and sold on the black market.
So we're not talking about a few kids with a sweet tooth here. This is organized.
Oh, yeah. This was sophisticated connections across provinces and even into the U.S. It wasn't just about stealing it.
Right.
It was about moving it, laundering it,
Mhm.
selling it without raising suspicion.
Okay, so we've got this shadowy network, a vulnerability in the system, and a whole lot of missing maple syrup. But how did this whole scheme finally unravel?
It all came crashing down during that inventory check we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
That inspector,
Yeah.
nearly falling into an empty barrel,
Right.
triggered this massive investigation. They quickly realized this wasn't just some small-time operation. We're talking over 9,500 barrels stolen, $18.7 million. That's enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Oh, my goodness. This just keeps getting more and more unbelievable. So who are the masterminds behind this sticky situation? So they've got this massive investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they even begin?
Well, they start following the trail, and it leads them to,
Yeah.
a fascinating cast of characters.
Right.
At the heart of it all
Yeah.
is a man named Richard Valieres,
Okay.
our alleged ringleader.
Richard Valieres, the
Yeah.
maple syrup
Kingpin.
kingpin.
Yeah.
What's his story?
Well, it turns out this wasn't a solo operation.
Okay.
Richard's father, Raymond Valliere,
Oh, wow.
was also involved.
Really?
He was later convicted of possession of the stolen syrup.
Wow, a family affair.
A real family affair.
That's not your average family business.
Yeah, I mean, how did they manage to move and sell so much syrup without anyone noticing?
Right.
That's where the sophisticated network comes in.
Okay.
Remember, we're talking about organized crime.
Right.
They had connections to a syrup reseller named Etienne St. Pierre, based in New Brunswick,
Okay.
and a trucker
Right.
named Sebastian Jutras,
Okay.
who helped transport.
So they were moving this across borders.
Exactly. They were transporting that stolen syrup,
Wow.
blending it with the legit stuff
Right.
to mask its origins, and then selling it in smaller batches
Right.
through various channels.
So a sticky web of deceit.
Exactly.
They couldn't have pulled this off without help from the inside.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Right.
The investigation uncovered their inside man, Avik Karan.
Okay.
And get this,
Yeah.
his spouse owned the warehouse
Oh, wow.
that the PPAQ was renting.
Talk about a conflict of interest.
Did.
It's incredible how all the pieces fit together.
Yeah.
So they've got the ringleader,
Yeah.
the transportation, the inside man, the connections to sell the goods.
Yeah.
What happened when the hammer finally came down?
Oh, they did.
Did they all get a taste of justice?
They did. Richard Valieres
Okay.
as the ringleader. Yeah.
Received an 8-year prison sentence and a hefty fine of $9.4 million.
Wow.
The court even added a clause
Yeah.
that if he didn't pay,
Yeah.
his sentence would be extended to 14 years.
Wow. That's a lot of time to think about what you did.
Right.
What about the other players?
Raymond Valliere, the father,
Yeah.
received a lighter sentence of 2 years less a day,
Okay.
plus probation.
All right.
Etienne St. Pierre, the reseller,
Yeah.
also got 2 years less a day, probation, and a significant fine.
And what about the trucker and the inside man?
Sebastian Jutras, the trucker, served 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Avik Karan, the insider who made it all possible,
Right.
received a 5-year sentence and a fine.
Okay. So everyone involved was held accountable.
Yeah.
Case closed, right?
Well, not quite.
Oh.
Richard Valliers actually appealed his sentence and fined,
Oh.
arguing that they were excessive.
Oh.
And believe it or not, the Quebec Court of Appeal agreed with him.
And reduced his fine to $1 million.
So he almost got away with a slap on the wrist.
Well, not so fast.
Right.
The Supreme Court of Canada later stepped in and
Yeah.
reversed that decision,
Oh, wow.
reinstating the original fine.
Good.
Yeah, so in the end, he couldn't escape the consequences of his actions.
Wow, what a roller coaster.
Right.
We've got organized crime, insider threats, international smuggling,
Mm-hmm.
millions of dollars worth of stolen syrup and court battles.
Yeah,
This is a story that just keeps on giving.
it does.
But this isn't just about a bunch of maple syrup bandits,
Right.
is it?
You're right.
Yeah.
This heist exposed vulnerabilities in a tightly controlled market.
Okay.
The lengths people will go to for profit,
Yeah.
and the importance of security and oversight,
Right.
even for something as seemingly harmless as maple syrup.
Right.
It raises a lot of questions
It does.
that go beyond the crime itself.
It really makes you think, could something like this happen again?
Yeah.
Are there lessons to be learned? Not just for the maple syrup industry,
Right.
but for any organization dealing with valuable assets. So we've been talking about this great Canadian maple syrup heist.
It's wild, right?
It really is. And there's so much more to it than just sticky fingers.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This heist.
Yeah.
It gives us this window into some really fascinating and complex issues.
Okay.
On the surface,
Uh-huh.
it's easy to be like, oh, a bunch of syrup bandits.
Right.
Making off with liquid gold.
Maple syrup. Yeah.
But if we look deeper,
Yeah.
we see it raises all these questions about market dynamics, organized crime, and the importance of security in a globalized world.
Let's start with the market.
Okay.
Maple syrup isn't just a breakfast topping anymore.
No.
It's a valuable commodity.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Subject to the same forces of supply and demand as any other commodity, like
Right.
oil,
Right.
coffee beans, you name it. When something's scarce and in high demand, people are going to find creative ways to get it, whether that's through legal means or not.
Yeah, yeah. It makes sense then that a black market for
Right.
maple syrup would exist.
For sure, especially when you consider the value attached to it.
And then there's the PPAQ.
Right.
We talked about their control over the market. But some people argue that that's exactly what makes a black market even more likely.
Right, because the PTAQ's control over those production quotas and pricing has supporters and detractors.
Right.
Some argue that it protects the producers and it ensures stability, while others see it as this unfair monopoly that can stifle competition and drive up prices, potentially making that black market even more appealing.
It's a real balancing act.
Oh, it is.
Between regulating the market and then potentially opening these doors for illegal activity.
Yeah, and this case really highlights that tension. And it also brings up another crucial issue. The insider threat.
Oh.
Remember Avik Caron?
Our inside man.
Our inside man, whose spouse owned the warehouse.
Right.
This whole heist couldn't have happened without someone on the inside, someone who knew the weaknesses in the security and could provide access.
Yeah, it makes you think about security. It's not just locks and cameras.
No.
It's about trust.
Yeah.
And making sure the people you rely on are actually trustworthy.
It's a good point.
It makes me wonder if something like this could happen again.
Right. What do you think?
Are there lessons to be learned from this? Not just for the maple syrup industry, but for anyone dealing with these valuable assets.
Absolutely. I think this heist serves as a huge wake-up call for any organization that thinks it can't happen to us. Having those robust security measures, doing thorough background checks, regular audits to make sure there's no vulnerabilities. Those are all critical.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think you have to build a culture of transparency and accountability where people feel comfortable reporting suspicious activity and it's addressed immediately.
So to our listeners out there who might be thinking, this is a fascinating story. But what does this have to do with me?
Right. Why should I care?
Yeah, why should they care about a bunch of stolen maple syrup?
Because it's not just about maple syrup.
Right.
It's about understanding the world around us. It's about the complexities of the market, the motivations behind criminal activity, and the importance of security in this world we live in. This story, as bizarre as it seems, it gives us a glimpse into issues that touch all of our lives.
It's a reminder that sometimes the things that we take for granted, like the syrup on our pancakes, have these fascinating and often hidden stories behind them.
I love that.
Yeah.
And maybe this story sparks some curiosity.
Yeah.
If someone's willing to go to such lengths for maple syrup, what else might be vulnerable?
It's a good question.
What other everyday things could be the next target?
It's a thought-provoking question to end on.
It is.
I think we've all learned that there's a lot more to maple syrup than meets the eye.
Definitely.
Until next time, stay curious, listeners, and maybe keep an eye out for anything suspiciously sticky.